I want to talk race for a minute here. We're going to get into a lot of interesting stuff today. Farron Cousins is going to be with us in our third hour. There's a huge heat wave, by the way, predicted for next week all across the United States, record-breaking temperatures and things like that. I'm suggesting we should start naming weather events after fossil fuel companies, the way we name hurricanes after women. Or maybe we should start naming hurricanes after fossil fuel companies. You know, it's Hurricane ExxonMobil, it's Hurricane Shell, it's Hurricane, you know, fill in the blank, Coke oil. But you know, we'll get to that in the third hour. And of course, it's anything goes summer. So, you know, anything you want to call and talk about, feel free to give us a shout. But Nick Kristof has a piece in today's New York Times. He talks about how in 1962, 85% of white Americans told Gallup that black children had as good a chance as white kids of getting a good education. In other words, in 1962, 83% of white people were completely out of touch with the reality of being black in America. 85%, excuse me. And in fact, there's a fair amount of bigotry back then. In 1963, 45% of white people said they'd object if a family member brought home a black person for dinner. So he says even in the last decade, though, 2/3 of white Americans have said that blacks are treated fairly by police, and 4 out of 5 whites have said that black children have the same chance as white kids of getting a good education. And then he talks about Brian Williams. Brian Williams is a surgeon who runs, or at, you know, on his shift, was running the Dallas emergency room at Parkland Hospital, where these police officers who were shot were taken. 7 of them were taken, and he, as Nick Kristof writes, he fought to save the lives of those officers. He wept for those he couldn't help. But in other contexts, he dreads the police. He told the Associated Press that after one traffic stop, he was stretched out, spread eagle on the hood of a police car. So he told the Washington Post, to the Dallas police, I support you, I defend you, I will care for you. That does not mean I will not fear you. And Kristof points out most white Americans are oblivious to this. Senator Tim Scott, Republican from South Carolina, is, I believe, the only African-American serving in the United States Senate. He's a Republican. And he went on the floor of the United States Senate, I guess it was the day before yesterday, to just share some of his personal experiences with his white colleagues who were so busy. Well, I don't want to characterize it. It's just this is an absolutely brilliant piece of a speech. This is about a 4-minute clip. So but it's fascinating. This is Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, African American.
I can certainly remember the very first time that I was pulled over by a police officer as just a youngster. I was driving a car that had an improper headlight. It didn't work right. And the cop came up to my car, hand on his gun, and said, "Boy, don't you know your headlight's not working properly?" I felt embarrassed, ashamed, and scared. Very scared. But instead of sharing experience after experience, I want to go to a time in my life when I was an elected official and share just a couple of stories as an elected official. But please remember that in the course of 1 year, I've been stopped 7 times by law enforcement officers. Not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7 times in 1 year as an elected official. Was I speeding sometimes?
Say that.
Sure. But the vast majority of the time, I was pulled over for nothing more than driving a new car in the wrong neighborhood or some other reason just as trivial. One of the times I remember I was leaving the mall. I took a left out of the mall, and as soon as I took a left, a police officer pulled in right behind me. So that was my first left. I got to another traffic light. I took another left into a neighborhood. Police followed behind me. I took a third left onto the street that at the time led to my apartment complex. And then finally, I took a fourth left coming into my apartment complex, and then the blue lights went on. The officer approached the car and said that I did not use my turn signal on the fourth turn. Keep in mind, as you might imagine, I was paying very close attention to the law enforcement officer who followed me on 4 turns. Do you really think that somehow I forgot to use my turn signal on that 4th turn? Well, according to him, I did. Another time, I was following a friend of mine. We had just left working out, and we were heading to Outback to grab a bite to eat about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he pulls out, and I pull out right behind him. We're driving down the road, and the blue lights come on. Officer pulls me into the median, and he starts telling me that he thinks perhaps the car is stolen. Well, I started asking myself, because I was smart enough not to ask him, asking myself, is the license plate coming in as stolen? Does the license plate match the car? I was looking for some rational reason that may have prompted him to stopping me on the side of the road. I also think about the experiences of my brother, who became a command sergeant major in the United States Army, the highest rank for an enlisted soldier. He was driving from Texas to Charleston, pulled over by a law enforcement officer who wanted to know if he had stolen the car he was driving because it was a Volvo. I do not know many African American men who do not have a very similar story to tell, no matter their profession, no matter their income, no matter their disposition in life. I also recall the story of one of my former staffers, great guy, about 30 years old, who drove a Chrysler 300, a nice car, without any question, but not a Ferrari, not a super nice car. He was pulled over so many times here in D.C. for absolutely no reason other than for driving a nice car. He sold that car and bought a more obscure form of transportation. He was tired of being targeted.
So this is the first third of about a 17-minute speech that Senator Scott gave, and it's like, white people in America, wake up. There's a brilliant post that Mr. Scorpio put over on DU, and this came from a website called wearethemovement.com. 23 ways you could be killed if you're black in America. Failing to signal a lane change, Sandra Bland. Riding in your girlfriend's car, Philando Castile. Running to the bathroom in your own apartment, Ramarley Graham. Selling cigarettes, Eric Garner. Riding a commuter train, Oscar Grant III. Walking home with a friend, Greg Gunn. Making eye contact, Freddie Gray. Selling CDs, Alton Sterling. Wearing a hoodie, Trayvon Martin. Walking away from police, Mario Woods. Walking toward police, Laquan McDonald. Missing a front license plate, Samuel DuBose. Holding a fake gun, Tamir Rice. Driving with a broken taillight, Walter Scott. Sitting in your car before your bachelor party, Sean Bell. And it goes on for page after page after page.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.